Hi, everybody. Just wanted to say hello in the beginning here, and maybe if you can let me know if you can hear me or see me, if there's any audio, or if you can hear my mic, or if you can see me okay. Let me know in the comments. I think I'm going to be able to see your comments, but I'm not. Oh, I do. I see comments now. Yay. Hi. Hi, Marissa. Thank you for being here live. Can you guys hear me and see me okay? Great. Thank you. Great. Um, while we're waiting for people to come in, I'm going to light some juniper, and maybe if you guys want to type in where you're watching from, what part of the world are you in? While I light this, I'll show you the juniper here. I don't know if you can see this. There we go. See a little more. Takes a while to light this juniper, but it's really wonderful. I don't know if you guys, some of you guys probably work with certain kinds of incenses, and it's really a wonderful thing to have them. So there's a little bit of that. Oh, thank you. Looking forward to learning more about this. That's wonderful. Thank you. So there's a little bit of juniper for all you. Have any of you guys worked with candles in a kind of a ritual way before, or maybe type in the comments, you know, if you feel comfortable doing so. And while we're still waiting, I'm just going to do a little bit of rattling before we get started. Good morning, Christina. Okay, I'm going to actually open Sacred Space later, and so you'll know, I'll let you know when that happens. Yes, candles were how I got started. Wow, Christina, and they're so universal. Yeah, that's so cool that you said that. That's kind of, you'll kind of hear me talk a little bit about that kind of concept. That's really cool that you brought that up. Hopefully I can see all of your comments, and just let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'll try and get to them. If I don't see them like immediately, I'll definitely get to them after the replay. But it looks great so far. I'm able to see everybody commenting and whatnot. So my name is Kirsten Lovett. And I love to work with people to discover their unique shamanic gifts. I help people by encouraging them to become more connected to the sacredness of nature. And the way we do this is by looking through a lens of multidimensional awareness. And because this is how, at least I believe, this is how all of our ancient ancestors once looked at nature and worked with nature and interacted with nature. So for those who already kind of have this awareness cultivated, then we just try to maintain and grow this awareness so that it becomes, you know, a daily practice, or at least a frequent practice. I got started in animism, and I was really happy to hear Christina and, of course, Marissa talked about animism, and just to kind of review, the animism definition that I usually like is just anything. Animism is relating to anything that has a soul or a spirit, or the belief, I should say, the belief that anything has a soul or a spirit. So that can include pretty much anything. And it comes from, I believe, animus, which is Latin for, I think, soul or breath, one of those. One of you guys probably know that better than I do. But it is animus, I think, is, I think that's where it comes from. So I started in animism in 2007 and have been helping people with shamanic guidance, shamanic coaching. About, these are just some of the areas I've done it in, is sacred tobacco, animistic relationships, and there's other topics as well, for about 7 years now. I co-moderated a free Facebook group called Animistic Earth Medicine with Marissa Lovett, and that was from 2017 to 2019. And currently, I have co-created a Patreon with Marissa Lovett called Shamanic Earth Medicine. And this is where we both teach animistic principles, shamanic principles, sacred tobacco, plant spirit medicine, shamanic journeying, and a variety of other topics. And I'll be mentioning that later on as well. And that's it. And Christina is one of our patrons too. And some of our Patreon members might show up today. It's at www.patreon.com/shamanic earth medicine, but I'll come back to that again. So the private Patreon is such a wealth of knowledge and incredible. Oh, thank you, Christina. Yes, I'm so glad you like it, and I love your input. We have some good discussions in the groups, and that's really cool. So I help people identify their unique shamanic gifts. And one of the ways we do this is by cultivating a spiritual relationship with aspects of nature. Some areas I've helped people with are exploring the plant and animal spirit relationship, sacred tobacco, which I mentioned, also sacred sites, and sometimes we talk about offerings and other animistic topics. But today, I'm going to talk to you and share with you candle magic for healing and ceremony. So the three things I'm going to talk about today are, one, how the spirits directed me to this practice, and then two, how an animistic relationship fuels the ceremony and how that works. And then I'm going to see, I think I can get through the demonstration with the candle ceremony itself. So we're gonna try to get through all three of those things today. So the cool thing about this ceremony that I wanted to kind of make sure everybody knew about is that this particular ceremony can be customized to fit your needs. So in terms of whichever deities or helping spirits you work with the most, you can call on them to power the ceremony in general. So I wanted to kind of put that idea out there first so that everybody can kind of feel comfortable with it, because, and actually this something that occurred to me more recently is that, and I might mention this again, is that out of all of the things that I've done so far, I think this particular ceremony I'm going to show you today is probably the most, I want to say it's cross-cultural, but it's also the most cross-faith. So I think that if you identify as a Christian, or if you practice Judaism or Islamic faith or Muslim, I'm pretty sure this will be very compatible with your belief system. And as well as, you know, if you're a heathen, or if you're a pagan or a witch, or If you consider yourself an animist or an earth-based wisdom person who believes those kinds of principles, or any Celtic, any of these kinds of things, all around the world. So I will also talk on how to do the ceremony if you don't have. You're going to hear me say the phrase helping spirit, and some of you may know what that is, and some people may not, really get what that is, and I'll talk about that. But overall, this candle ceremony has brought benefits. I've been practicing this for, I think, at least a year and a half, maybe, this particular ceremony. And it's brought benefits to people, to clients who have expressed benefits in areas of physical healing, in emotional healing, and also financial abundance, even. So, oh, I love how universal this ceremony is, and it moves energy. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes. So, how the spirits directed me to this ceremony. I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. I have a medicine bundle from a tradition that I was initiated into, basically. But it requires materials that aren't obtainable where I live. So, and this is very frustrating. For years and years and years, I wasn't able to really think of any way to solve this problem. And I think this ceremony has really found a way to quell that frustration that I had with not being able to properly utilize the gifts of the medicine bundle, and also just practice the tradition. You don't need to know about the details of what that is. It's just a point I'm trying to make. So I found other ways to substitute for the material, because at the end of the day, and this is another universal concept I want to make sure everybody knows, it's more important to make an effort to keep a relationship with whatever it is you're doing that's spiritual, with your sacred helping spirits, than to not. At whatever frequency you can make that happen, of course. So after some time, like I mentioned, I prayed to the helping spirits on a regular basis through this tradition. And plus I also have, like I mentioned, sacred tobacco as an ally, a plant spirit ally. So I could offer and communicate that way as well, so that I could find some kind of solution to this really big problem I had. And I was directed to candles as a vehicle to transmit the medicine from these helping spirits from this particular tradition. So it was kind of like a substitute for the missing materials that I couldn't get, So it was really nice to have that come in and act as an agent, in that way. So a modification was made, which required me to trust. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I have trouble with that. And I had to trust in what the spirits were telling me and what the medicine bundle was telling me. And then also I had to trust in what I was doing. I didn't know if I was doing it right. I didn't know if it was working until, I tested it out. But this way of communicating and I keep talking about my medicine bundle, but I think you can fill in the blank here, and I'll mention that later too, with whatever beings you work with, and also helping spirits. It's very characteristic to have this kind of dialogue between you and the spirits. It seems odd at first. I think it does, but eventually it feels normal. I kind of want to mention, because I like to throw in a pop culture reference, this is the scene from, I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this movie, but just in case you haven't, you guys know the Karate Kid, the first Karate Kid movie, the wax on, wax off kind of bit, or the young boy is trying to learn karate from the karate master, and the karate master keeps telling him, you know, go out and paint my fence or go and wax my car. And he tells him specific motions to make when he's painting the fence or waxing the car. And they're very specific. And the boy does this for a few days, and he comes back and he says, you know, when am I going to learn karate? This is stupid. He gets really, you know, angry at him. He says, I'm not learning any karate here. And the guy just kind of, I don't remember what he says exactly, but later on in the movie, you know, the young boy uses these motions that he learned painting the fence and waxing the car in his karate. So that became his karate. So I feel like this is a good analogy for how it feels getting this information from the spirits. You have no idea why you're doing it, or at least I don't. Some time goes by, you're just doing these things, and random things that they tell you to do. They're not random, they're very specific usually, but they seem random because they don't fit with something, you know, they don't fit in anywhere. And then some time goes by, and then eventually you can look back and go, oh, they were trying to show me how to do something, you know, and it just takes some time. So let me just stop for a second. I like your process of discovering with divination how to move forward with a ceremony, especially when something needs to be changed. Thank you. Yeah. I feel like, thanks for saying that. I feel like that's something that has to, like, I think everybody has to do that at some point, because unless you're in a I hate to bring this up, but unless you're in a pre-built society that has elders, human elders, that are there to give you the information that you need when you need it, which for the most part, most people don't have that. So that's when divination becomes your friend. And sometimes I forget to use it, but when I do remember to use it, it's really helpful. And yeah, it solves a huge wound too, you know, because when you feel like you're doing something to connect with a process that is utilizing gifts that you're supposed to be utilizing, it just feels so much better than not using them at all, you know, which is, I think, what all of us are trying to do at some point. But you may have a different way of communicating and receiving information. Like you might be, maybe you're not clairaudient, but you're clairvoyant, or or you could be all of them. You could be clairsentient. You could be, you guys know all the different clairs, but you know, there's a variety of different ways to receive information, and you just want to go, you just want to go with the way that feels best for you. So keep in mind that you will spend some time preparing for the ceremony. I think that's true across the board. Like any ceremony you do ever, you're going to prepare for. And also you will need to keep up the relationship between ceremonies with prayers and offerings. For example, I was directed by the spirits through the medicine bundle to recite a specific prayer for it. It turned out to actually happen every day for a year. And that was before I ever knew what I was going to do with the candle ceremony, or that there was even going to be a ceremony. And so now that I have it memorized, this prayer, in fact, I did it today before coming in here today at 12. This powers up the ceremony. And I'll talk a little more about that again as well. I also pray regularly to a set of helping spirits, which I did for some time before actually asking for their help with the ceremony. So like, let's say you want to get to know some helping spirits, you may want to, like, and you're not used to what that means or how to do that, you may want to start to do offerings and prayers to them, kind of, let's say, I'm going to throw out a number, like a few months before you start a ceremony, ideally. If there's a time pressure thing where you really need to do it ASAP, then maybe, maybe just do it for a couple days. If it's a real emergency or something where you really feel like you need to do this ceremony as soon as possible. But ideally, it'd be nice to kind of, you're building up a rapport, basically. And this happens a lot with helping spirits. As I mentioned before, they'll ask you to do something. It won't make sense, like I said before. Animistic behaviors like regular offerings to helping spirits, prayers to the earth, elements can come into this. Like you can bring in, in fact, this is another topic altogether, but if you ever do weather work or weather shamanism, you'll definitely want to start doing, if possible, daily prayers to all of your elements. I'd like to personally, and myself included, see everybody doing prayers to the elements every day, just saying thank you, air, in whatever way you want. Thank you, earth. Thank you, water. Thank you, ether. Thank you, fire. I just think it's a really nice way to kind of, get that relationship going, and it helps a lot. These helping spirits fuel whatever you do ritually. I'm sure a lot of you practice witchcraft are already kind of know that, but if you aren't as familiar with that, that's what you're doing. And I think more importantly, the behavior, like a person doing this kind of behavior, and I guess you can call it a habit, will become second nature in establishing an ongoing relationship. So let me take a second here. How can you tell when the spirits want to help with the ceremony? Do you dream of them? Well, overall, I've had some good dreams here and there, but my dream life is very complicated. So I tend to get most of my messages during the day or in the evening, during quote unquote waking life. And I tend to get them if I hear a spirit like specifically saying I want to help, it's usually when I'm literally in contact with the medicine bundle and or with sacred tobacco. So I kind of have to be, sometimes there are occasions where I'll get some information when I'm not with those sacred beings or sacred objects that have sacred beings in them. And they will kind of like say, I'll just come out and tell you, this particular ritual medicine object, the medicine bundle that I keep referring to, is referring to an Andean tradition. And so maybe I might hear a certain Apu, which is a mountain spirit. A certain mountain spirit wants to address a certain, like if I want to address a certain problem, maybe I'll hear, okay, that's Apu, blah, 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 So that's probably, I'll have to think about that a little more, but I think that's probably about the extent of it right now. So, but that's a really good question, and I really appreciate that. Let me think about that a little more. Hi, Sylvie. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad. Okay, cool. So like I said before, I'm going to start to get ready for the ceremony now. So we're going to start to get into this, but this ceremony is helpful. Like I said, if you already have a working relationship, but you don't have to have a working relationship with any spirits or allies to actually do it. It helps, but it's not required. Now's a good time to pick a helping spirit. Maybe you already feel drawn to one. Maybe you feel drawn to a deity or a goddess or a god, or a nature spirit in your landscape, or a nature spirit in some other landscape, or a plant spirit, or an animal spirit. It could be any faith, any tradition. And start making offerings to this being, whichever one you pick, on a regular basis, whatever you can do, for that particular habit. Supply-wise, to do the candle ceremony, you will need 2, and I'll come back to the spiritual aspect of it, but we're going to get to the practical level for a second here. You'll need at least 2 candles total. And I'll tell you what each one of them means in a second here. If you can probably do this with birthday candles, but for today and in general, I like to do a tea light candle. Preferably if you can get ones that are 2 hours. They have, the ones that I've seen are either 2 hours, 5 hours, or 8 hours. Unless you know you're going to be in front of your candles for 8 hours, you know, I like getting 2-hour ones. Sometimes they go more than 2 hours anyway. So I'll come back to that in a minute, though. So it's before you actually start the ceremony, you want to do some kind of clearing or energetic grounding. Some of you guys, if not all of you, already have some kind of clearing process that you do. It could be a combination of sacred smoke, like we did with the juniper. Sound is good, and I'm going to open up sacred space in a minute. You know, if you have a rattle, you can do some kind of rattling. Chanting, if you already follow a tradition that has specific tones, chants to them. All of these things. I know some people do yoga, some people do breath work, shamanic breath work. There's like so many ways that you can energetically clear your fields, your, I guess you could call it your aura, but you know, whatever, you know, your chakras, etc. Because you want to be in a good space. It's kind of like taking a shower, basically. Next up, you want to pray to whatever main helping spirit you deal with. This is before you ever touch your candles. So, for example, before I started today, a couple hours ago, I did some prayers to several different beings. And for you guys today, I'm going to call this the primary spirit. We're just kind of labeling this so that you guys can fill in the blank. Today, you're going to hear me talk about the world tree as the primary spirit. And what the primary spirit is, it's just a name I'm calling it, okay? This spirit will power the ceremony. So you need something to fuel the ceremony. This is before you touch your candles. You'll also need to do a prayer for each person. If you have some kind of prayer, like I'll just kind of make one up here. For example, I might say, "Thank you, World Tree. World Tree, I ask permission. I ask permission of you, World Tree. World Tree, I ask for your guidance. I thank you for your longevity, for lasting through all these thousands of years. And I ask for your help, guidance, healing, wisdom, protection, perseverance, and determination. Thank you, World Tree." So you might, that's just, you know, something you could throw out there. "Oh, Christina, you use tea lights the most. So convenient." Yeah, they're really, I mean, it's weird. It's like they used to be totally available at the Walmarts that live near, that we have near our house. And they disappeared from Walmart. So at least in our area. So we've had to do the whole Amazon thing. But if you can get them in packs of, you know, obviously if you can buy them in bulk, that's better, you know. And they're usually, I've found that they're pretty, you know, they're pretty durable and they last pretty much as long as they say they'll last. So as long as you look on the package and check how many hours they're supposed to burn, that's the most ideal thing. So, and then, you heard me say thank you. So, asking permission, saying thank you, etc., to the helping spirit, the primary spirit, excuse me, the primary spirit. Now, then what we do is we take one of our candles and we blow into the primary spirit candle, kind of like a repetition of what we just did. Thank you, World Tree. Thank you, World Tree. Thank you, World Tree. I found that 3 times is really good. If you decide to do it more or less, that's fine too. But I like the number 3. World Tree, please bless the ceremony today. I ask permission of the World Tree. Please bless with longevity, protection, wisdom, healing. Thank you. So I'm blowing into I'm using my breath to fuel the candle there. And that's our primary candle. And I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing here. Let me tell you what I did wrong. We had 2 plates here. You should put your primary candle on a separate plate from your, I will call this the receptor candle. So we just blew into the primary candle right here. And it doesn't have to be on a plate, but it's good to have it like on something thick, because I know these are in tins and everything, but like I like to have them on some kind of thick ceramic or something that isn't going to overheat, basically. Using common sense. But you want to keep these separate. So your primary candle is separate from your receptor candle, and your receptor candle is the candle that's going to go for the person, place, or thing that you're healing. And I'll get to that in just a second. But I wanted to show you that. Like, I made a big deal in my notes of saying keep them separate, and sure enough, I ended up putting them on the same plate. So yeah, whatever. Make mistakes, right? If you had any other helping spirits that you wanted to add to the primary candle, like let's say you had an additional plant spirit or an additional, I forgot to mention, if you practice with saints, like if this would be a great way to add in if you're familiar with saints and archangels and beings like that, or ascended masters, those would be your primary spirit candles. Candle. You don't have to have a ton of them. You can have one. But if you decide to have additional primary spirit candles, this is where you would say prayers into the candles. You would do them individually. Like if you had one for Archangel Michael, or another one for, a plant spirit like tobacco, or whatever, whatever your beings that you like to deal with, or let's say it's chamomile or something like that. So that's where you would do that. The primary candle for the primary spirit is like a doorway that invites the spirit to stay. Yes, exactly. So it's like, it's the deity, or it's the thing that's powering the ceremony, basically. But you're right, it has to be a doorway. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it does have to be a doorway in order for it to work. Yeah. Thank you. That was such a great comment. Thank you. And here again, I want to keep emphasizing, you don't have to have a primary spirit or a helping spirit already. Just ask for the World Tree. And if this is the case, if you decide to work for the first time with, which is totally cool, with, for example, the World Tree, or if you decide to pick another being like an archangel, or whoever, a plant spirit or an animal spirit, I highly, highly, highly suggest that you make an offering before the ceremony and an offering after the ceremony. For example, I, a couple hours ago, did an offering to the World Tree, as well as some other helping spirits, for this particular ceremony today. And some offerings you can use are tobacco, like actual, preferably organic if you have it. You can use corn, you can use grains, you can use hair, water, cream or half and half, alcohol-based, like we use kombucha a lot because it does have a little bit of alcohol in it. If you feel guided to use a specific offering that's something other than what I just listed, obviously you want to go with what you feel very connected to or what you receive as a message. If you have any other traditional practices that you do in general, you would want to add them here. So I'm kind of trying to speak to a lot of different kinds of skill levels for different people at this point. Each candle for each helping spirit should be kept on a separate plate. You can put all the helping spirit, primary spirit candles together on one plate. That's fine. But just keep them separate from the receptor candles, whoever it is or whatever it is that needs healing. When you're ready to start the ceremony, and I'm going to go ahead and open sacred space first, actually, because I got ahead of myself before we do this. So give me just a moment here. To the Ugupacha, Amaru, I send a voice. Gracias, Hatun Pachamama, Santa Tierra, ancestors. I ask for a blessing and protection for those who watch now and in the future. The Kai Pacha. Hatun Kuma, I send a voice. Gracias Alpukuna. Gracias Apukuna. Gracias Intitaitai. Gracias Mayu. Gracias Hatun Chaskipuna. Gracias Mamakia. I send a voice. I ask for healing and protection for those who watch it now and in the future. To the Anak Pacha. Hatun Condor, Apuchin, Eagle. I send a voice. I ask that you please send healing and protection for those who watch it now and in the future. Now here's where you would open sacred space, however it is that you do that. You don't have to do it the way I did it. A lot of people do either directions or you could do a lower world, I send a voice, middle world, I send a voice, upper world, I send a voice, and now sacred space is open. There's places where you can open sacred space earlier than we did. I just wanted to kind of explain some of those other aspects. So I think we're ready to light the primary candle. So I'm going to light that first, because you want to time it out so that you're not having them burn for too long, like before you actually start praying for the person, place, or thing. So here's our primary candle. And this was for today, this was the world tree and is the world tree. And I'll show you that again. So that's what's fueling our ceremony today. And I've got a couple other friends helping to fuel the ceremony too. But for our purposes today, that's what's happening. Now you can start praying individually to each person or thing. And the reason I mentioned thing is I was trying to think about, I was actually asking the spirits yesterday. I was trying to figure out what I needed to do for today, because one of the things I wanted to tell you guys is that I found that it's best not to, like if you have one candle, for example, and I mentioned this before, you don't want to try and combine more than one person, place, or thing onto one candle. So for the receptor candle, that is. And so I was thinking about it. I was like thinking, okay, how am I going to do today's ceremony? Because normally what I do is I have like maybe 10 or 15 people, and I have 10 or 15 candles, and that's one candle per person. So it's very, cut and dry. Like I know exactly what I need to do. Whereas like today, I had no idea, like it's a little more open-ended in terms of like there's a crowd of people and I have no idea how many people are going to watch this. It's just so they suggested to me, why don't you do the candle for the water beings? Because I don't know about you, but in our area, the water beings, they need a little bit of help. So, and I'm not talking about bringing rain. I'm talking about the condition of water and the water spirits that guard the water springs and various sources of water in the area. So this is the receptor candle for today. And what I'm going to do is, all you have to do is you could pretend this could be your friend Julie, or your brother or your sister, or your mother or grandparents, or your friend at work, or whatever. You would put their name, and instead of hearing a name, which normally I would say the person's name 3 times, you're going to hear me talk about water spirits and other things like that. But this is your receptor candle, and normally you would say, like, let's say it was for your friend Julie. You would say, I'd like to ask permission, World Tree, fill in the blank with whatever helping spirit you're dealing with that you used for your primary candle. I'd like to ask permission from the World Tree. And here's where you would say your friend's name. Please, and I'm not going to whisper it I'm not going to blow it into the candle because I'm using that for something else. But you would say, please bring Julie excellent health, financial abundance, help with her work, whatever, But in this case, I'm going to say, World Tree, I'd like to ask your permission. Please help the water spirits in our area and all around the world to protect the areas that are sacred, which is all areas of water. Please help the waters be healthy and clean for the animals and plants and people. Please help all of us who live here on Earth to know how to interact with water spirits and to understand that you watch over the water spirits, you watch over the water and the sources of water so that they're healthy and clean. I ask for healing for the water and the water spirits. Please help us protect the sacred waters that flow all over this planet and underneath in the ground. Thank you, World Tree. Thank you, water spirits. Thank you, water spirits. Thank you, water spirits. So you heard me say it 3 times. If you have a different number that works for you better, use that. But I like 3. 3 works. So here's our water spirit candle. And I'm going to put that on a separate plate from our primary spirit, aka World Tree. And I'll show you the plates in just a minute. So how do I get the messages? Well, I'm clairaudient, so I work with my spirits, and I do a lot of exercises in the morning before I even do this ceremony. It's kind of like training as an athlete. You have to do a lot of exercises in order to get the muscles, working and functioning, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure a lot of you guys do that too. And that's how I get the information as to what to say and which areas to address. If we had a person on that candle, let's say, they can give you, like if you know them, they can give you a specific, very, very specific request. It can be about something in their body or a physical problem. It can be an emotional problem. It can be a work problem. It can be anything. It can be financial. It can be whatever. Protection, just general protection. And of course, a lot of this will depend on how much you work with helping spirits too. The key thing is to ask for permission first, when you do work with the primary spirit, and even when you blow into the receptor candle. And you heard me say something like excellent health. Let me say that again because I didn't really go through the whole thing. But like if I was doing this for a person, which is generally what I usually do, so this is actually kind of an unusual procedure that I'm doing today, but hey. So if you were doing this for a person, you could say, if you didn't know like what they wanted specifically, you could say, I asked for this person excellent health, assistance or guidance, financial abundance, protection, or any other kinds of blessings. And then you would light the candle after that. So when you're done, you should have, here's your primary candle. And I like showing these to everybody because it's just fun. It's one of these times where when you do so much work with spiritual, just any kind of spirits, when you can actually have a physical thing like a candle, it's just really satisfying. So that's why I like showing them into the camera. It's like one of the few times you can actually like see the material in person. So they are on their separate plates, and here's where we will close sacred space. So I'm going to do that right quick. To the Ukupacha, Amaru, I send a voice. Gracias Hatun Pachamama, Santa Tierra, ancestors. I ask for a blessing and protection for those who watch it now and in the future. To the Kai Pacha, Hatun Kuma, I send a voice. Gracias Mayu, gracias Apukuna, gracias Intitaitai, gracias Mamakia, gracias Hatun Chasikuna. I send a voice. I ask for healing and protection for those who watch now and in the future. To the Anapacha, Atun Condor, Eagle, Apuchin, I send a voice. I ask for healing and protection for those who watch it now and in the future. Again, you probably have a different way of closing sacred space. So whatever that is, do that here. If you don't know, just do like the 4 directions, do, whatever order you want to do them in. I know there's a lot of people who could probably tell you better than I, a suggested order for that. You want to keep an eye on your candles. This is a common sense part of things. Definitely don't leave them. Don't leave the house when they're burning. And I'm sure you guys know that already, but I just want to put that out there. For example, I have them pretty closely put together on this table that I'm using right now, and they're fine because they're on a plate. They're not going to nothing's going to go up in flames or anything. So if you have holders, that's even better, but I like the plates for many candles because it's just easier to kind of, place them in there. So, and in between, oh, I forgot to mention this, in between ceremonies, like let's say we get done today, right? Or let's say you do one of these ceremonies today and you feel better, you get, you feel like things are going well. And maybe a couple days after that, get another candle out and just say thanks to that primary spirit, whatever that was. If it's the world tree, or if you asked for permission from a different helping spirit, Archangel Michael or Saint Jude or whatever, or a mountain spirit or whatever. Just light a candle, blowing into the candle. I think that's really consistently important that you blow into the candle. Your intention, of course. And that helps keep the balance. I have to do that usually, and also after this program is over today, I'll have to go outside and leave another offering for the World Tree and the other helping spirits that I asked to be here today. So those are some things, you know, that you'll want to do kind of in between ceremonies. Hi, for some reason I didn't get a notification. I'll catch the replay. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that happens with Facebook. In this ceremony, does it mean something if the candles burn more quickly than usual? That's a really, really, really good question. My first instinct is to say yes. Yes, it does mean something. And I've tended to, I'm kind of using my clairsentience right now to feel this out. And I really feel like that means that if it burns faster, that means there was something that needed to be extracted or cleansed. You know, that's just my theory. Yeah. Yeah, like there, not necessarily anything bad. I mean, sometimes it does mean that, but sometimes it's just something that needed to be extracted or cleansed. That's just my general